Bullet! What's up, guys? It's Adam Cass Winner, Chef Cass, Instructor Viajante, coming to you guys. Not live. This is the recording because Facebook has temporarily suspended privileges because they don't like me using other people's music while I work out and then putting that up. But I'm flowing with the content. I'm flowing with the insight. I'm flowing with the support and the coaching and the directing. So the other day we had a team meeting, and I brought my laptop, and I had everybody. I was kind of like everybody was speaking, right? Everyone was kind of sharing some different things in our team, and so I would take the laptop and I'd turn it to face one person, turn it to face another person. And I was like, it was like, to me, I was like directing like a movie. So the reason I think of all this is today's post is called "The Power of Responsibility." Because when you work with a lot of different people, you tend to find patterns that repeat. So if I work with somebody in nutrition as a private chef, or I work with students in capoeira, not everybody has the same patterns, but maybe there's 50 different patterns, and every once in a while you'll find a whole new pattern. But for the most part, the patterns repeat, and what we need to do sometimes is a pattern interrupt, right? When we have a pattern that's not serving us, when we have a pattern that's out of whack, you could say, with what our goals, what our ambitions, what we're striving for, when you have a pattern that it's leading you away from that or is creating something else, then we really need to be ultra mindful that we need to do something to break that pattern. Because what happens so many at a time is the pattern a lot of times is unconscious, right? So we're doing the pattern and we're not even aware of it, and it's producing the certain outcome, the certain result, and then we become unhappy when that result is present. But just like when we talk about gardening and planting, that there's seasons, that there's putting the seed in the ground, there's cultivating, there's tending the soil, there's seeing the crop, picking the crop at the right time, harvesting at the right time. You don't get to the harvest and then be like, oh, my crop came out bad, and not associate what you did up to the point of the harvest, right? You have to consider all the other things that went into producing that outcome before the outcome was produced. And likewise, what I find with people a lot that I work with in coaching them, this can be in their dietary habits, this can be in their fitness habits, this can be in their mindset, that a lot of times what I find with people, and this is not fault, guys. It's not putting someone down or shaming or guilting. This is insight that is essential for change, right? So if you're the type of person that when you get feedback, when someone, tells you this is what's happening, all of a sudden you become, it jolts you, right? It's like a stab. Be very mindful that point is the point where the attention is needed. Right? You have a vulnerability. You have a weakness. And a weakness is not bad. Just like when I talk about with food, there's no food that's bad. Right? There's only a response that ingesting that food causes. Food has no morality. Food has no ethics. There's only physiology. So a lot of the times when we do some of this process of our of working through our own stuff. The other thing I hope that you guys understand is none of this is meant to be spiritual, quote unquote, or anything. This isn't really. It might be metaphysical in the sense of it's not just physical. This is not like woo woo, like we're gonna like overcome this by putting crystals in our mouth or anything silly. Right? This is very action oriented, directed. For lack of a better way to put it, it's a science. Now, when we have a science, do we know all of the answers right off the bat? Of course not. When we have a science, it's a process. We have what's called the scientific process, right? So there's a hypothesis, there's the application, the testing, the experimentation, the studying, the having control groups, having variables. Right? All of this is science. So what I come to you with, what I share here, it's not to say this is the form, final, absolute 100% version. This is, I am in the science of human development. I'm in the science of personal growth, not my own only, working with a lot of people. So one of the themes that you'll hear me repeat a lot with the people that I coach and I work with is that it's always easier to untie your own knots. Me saying I'm helping other people does not mean I don't also need to be helped. I recognize my need to be helped, and I turn to people, and I take responsibility for my own challenges. I don't even think of them as problems. I just think this is a challenge right now. This is something I'm overcoming. This is something I'm working through. This is something I'm growing in this area. So ultimately, we just want to get back to this concept that whatever is going on in my life, I need to own it. If I'm taking the energy and putting it towards something else or someone else, some factor out of my control, my power then is gone. Now, it's not to say we can control everything in our lives. It's not to say other people don't play a factor. It's not to say there are not external ingredients, variables going on. But so many of the times, we inadvertently reinforce our habits and patterns that don't serve us by linking them, by attaching them to something or someone outside of ourselves. That person did this to me. That person is being this way, so I feel this happened, so I got this is going on, so I'm okay. Where in your life are you doing this? Where in your life are you having a story around a pattern that you're linking that pattern? You're linking that story, you're linking that repetition of your life to something outside of yourself in any way, shape, or form. So, for example, a lot of people that I work with, few of them have jobs where their jobs bring in catering. They bring in like all this certain kinds of food, and that food is then free, right? It's paid for, and they're gonna eat. It's at lunchtime. So their story can go often like this: my boss, my job brings in this food. Oh, they just put it in front of me, and they bring in pizza every week. Or they bring in subs, or they bring in cookies, or they bring in ice cream, or they bring in chocolate. Oh, every week they bring it, and it's sitting there. person just gave up all their power. They just gave up all their response ability, their ability to respond. Because, friends, what I encourage you to see is that your ability to respond is an ability. And any ability we have in life, any skill we have in life, is developed. You can say, well, some people are just more prone to being able to be better responsive. And what I would say is, take someone who's prone and unprone them, right? So maybe someone who's genetically disposed to having a certain, being more calm. Put them around all, people riddled with anxiety, people riddled with stress, people riddled with being, all over the place, and that has a way of rubbing off. So, first thing in this challenge of taking responsibility is accepting that you're responsible. Accepting that I'm responsible. Without any caveats. Without saying, I'm responsible, but, ... So, I want to quote the author the correct way, but I believe it was Frankel. I'm going to get back to you guys in another video. But there was a Jewish man in prison during the Nazi occupation of Paris. And he said, we were never more free than during the German occupation. And he says that because he realized that it was even while their physical bodies were imprisoned or encamped, that their attitudes were still free. Their mentality was still free. So we can accept that, and we can know that sometimes in one area of our lives very clearly. I have this freedom. I'm free to choose what I want to eat. I'm free to spend my time with who I want. But then maybe in another area, we have a story. So I ask you, where are you telling yourself you're not free? Where are you telling yourself something or someone is imprisoning you, is telling you, is mandating how you think? Where are you doing that right now? What area of your life have you decided to give away your ability to respond? What area of your life have you given away deciding the trajectory, the course of your life? What area of your life have you given away your power? Because when you identify it, especially if you do it in a moment outside of when it's happening. Because when it's happening, it's already emotional. It's going to be very hard, if not impossible, to overcome emotion with logic. This is something I see people again and again and again and again trying to do and failing at and getting frustrated with themselves. Because people try to overcome emotion with logic, and it doesn't work. It's the opposite. The emotion overcomes logic. The easiest, best example of this is the one we hear about all the time with the mother lifting up a car to save her burning child. Emotion overcomes logic. So, if you continue to get into logical conversations that have ongoing emotional undertones, you are focused on the wrong thing. Basically, what that means is when you're trying to reason something out, when you're trying to figure something out, when you're trying to explain something into making sense. But through that whole dialogue, you continue to have an energy about you. You can even tell right now, I have an energy about this conversation. Because I sincerely and powerfully want to make an impact on some people who are stuck in a story. So I recognize that sometimes I need to help cut them off from that story by cutting off the emotion that I'm giving to their story. Right? As in the case if I had myself trapped in an emotional story. So I could tell an emotional story about some part of my life. But what I end up trying to do is reason my way out of that story. When what I really need to do is let go, detach from the emotion of that story. And when I say detach, I don't mean be a zombie or be a robot. I mean that somehow I am bound, I am chained by an old emotional pattern that is dictating an experiential pattern. So my emotions, which I'm not taking responsibility for, because they're not aligned with the outcome I'm looking to create, they're not aligned with the outcome I'm looking to produce, but I keep bringing them back up. You guys see how this makes sense? That your emotion will overcome your logic, and getting into the logic often brings up the old emotion. But the emotion is not aligned with the outcome I'm looking to produce. So if the emotion is, my garden is not going to grow, I always plant crops and I never have a harvest, what do you think that emotion will cause me to do? That emotion will cause me to take less care of my field. That emotion will cause me to be less excited, will cause me to learn less, will cause me to spend less time in that area that I'm looking to do. And you might be like, oh no, you could have that emotion. No. If you think that you're still not understanding that taking responsibility for your emotions rather than being subject to your emotions. So emotion overcomes logic, and we can't over logic emotions. But what we can do is dive into emotion. We can hang out with emotion. If you're feeling sad, sometimes it's not why do I feel sad or how do I not feel sad? Sometimes it's being sad. And sometimes it's doing something else. So if your story right now is continuously immersed in one state of being, and that state of being keeps repeating in one story, and that story is not the story you're interested in telling anymore. Or more accurately, that story is not the story you're interested in living anymore. I encourage you to change your emotional state. Then work on changing your story. So if you're not excited, if you're not passionate, if you're not living in flow, if you're living in desperation, if you're living in depression, if you're living in anxiety, go out and do something that is not going to put you into that state. Go out and do something where it's going to shift the state that you find yourself in without question. Even if it's a degree change. I'm not saying you need to go from being depressed to being euphoric. Don't do that. Those swings, those oscillations are going to perpetuate this. That's what happens when we rely on logic. Because we start feeling good for a moment, but we convince ourselves that the story has changed because the emotion is gone. Whereas really what we need to focus on is changing the emotion and then progressively changing the story. Because one of my mentors, Tony Robbins, likes to talk about all depression starts with focusing on yourself, and progress is happiness. So when we focus on those two ideas together, cohesively as a unit, what area right now can you make progress in? Because if you're feeling challenged, most likely it's from feeling like you're not making progress in some area or areas of your life. So if you want to change how you feel, you need to put yourself in an area where you know you can make progress through your energy, effort, time, attention. And when you experience that progress, now you'll be in an emotional state that's shifted. And now it's time to start putting the blocks into building gradually a different story in the other area of your life. Don't go back to the old story and expect it to change just because you're in an emotional state. That is what most people do. They go right back to the old story that was bothering them as soon as they feel better. And then they feel worse. They're like, oh, why do I feel worse? Start putting energy. Start, after you've built that momentum in an area where you can progress, start putting that same creative, productive, constructive energy into a new story, into a different version of that area. So if you're like, oh, I got injured and I can't do that thing I was doing, that sport, can you, after you shift and go maybe work on a business or go outside of the park or meditate, done some creative, constructive, energetically benefiting, energetically perpetuating. Take some of that energy you've generated now and put it into a new version of that area. So I can't go do the thing I was doing, but I can go do this. And maybe at first that's not as fun. So my bike got stolen in November. I haven't bought a new bike yet. I haven't been able to buy a new bike yet. But I have rollerblades. And so every day or every couple of days I take the dog out. I'd love to take her on the bike. It's the best exercise for her. I love to bike. I love to bike with her or without her. I don't have a bike right now. I could just sit inside and just say, I don't have a bike. I'm miserable. And put myself down. I'm going to be more sedentary. Or I can be like, I don't have a bike, but I do have rollerblades. I can get better at rollerblading because I'm not particularly good at it. So change the story after you change the emotion. Guys, I hope this helps you. I would love to hear about how taking responsibility in your life is important right now. I know this could benefit a lot of people. I hope you get to watch it, share it with your friends, and we'll see you guys next time, tomorrow. Okay, it's an ongoing series, and it's an ongoing educational series. And as I said, Facebook Live is not an option right now, so we're going to be doing it through YouTube, and we are going to keep building it. I'd love to hear your feedback. Any point or question or topic you'd like me to kind of go further with or elaborate on or speak to, I would love to know. I hope you guys are enjoying these, and I'll talk to you soon. Kaz out. Bye-bye.